In the vast tapestry of galactic history, few figures embody pure cowardice and greed quite like Nute Gunray. This green-skinned Neimoidian wasn't a warrior, wasn't a brilliant strategist, and certainly wasn't brave. Yet somehow, this craven businessman managed to help orchestrate the downfall of a 1,000-year-old republic and plunge the galaxy into the most devastating war it had ever seen. This is the story of how a coward's grudge and insatiable greed became the spark that ignited the Clone Wars. Nute Gunray was born on the planet Neimoidia during the final decades of the Galactic Republic, a time when the galaxy seemed peaceful and prosperous on the surface, but corruption and discontent festered beneath. The Trade Federation, one of the most powerful corporate entities in the galaxy, had grown fat on profits from controlling shipping lanes and trade routes across thousands of star systems. By 34 years before the Battle of Yavin, the ruthless Neimoidian had clawed his way to the position of Viceroy of the Trade Federation, wielding enormous economic power across the galaxy. But Gunray's rise to absolute control over the Federation wasn't entirely his own doing. In 33 years before the Battle of Yavin, a catastrophic event known as the Eriadu Conference left a massive power vacuum in the Federation's leadership. Multiple high-ranking officials died in what appeared to be an accident, clearing the path for Gunray to seize total control. What few knew at the time was that this accident had been orchestrated by a mysterious figure operating from the shadows, a dark lord of the Sith named Darth Sidious. Under Gunray's leadership, the Trade Federation became increasingly aggressive in its business practices. The Viceroy commissioned propaganda that some found deeply disturbing, including an advertisement called Safe in Our Hands, featuring a Neimoidian hand holding the capital world of Coruscant in its palm. Many interpreted this as a symbol of Gunray's ambitions to literally own the galactic capital itself. Though the Federation dismissed such concerns as anti-Neimoidian prejudice, Gunray's transformation from mere corporate executive to galactic villain began with what seemed like a simple political dispute. The Galactic Senate was considering new taxation legislation on trade routes to outlying systems, measures that would significantly impact the Trade Federation's massive profits. When Senator Palpatine of Naboo introduced a bypass amendment that cost the Federation a crucial political alliance, Gunray was furious. Little did he know that Senator Palpatine was actually his secret benefactor, Darth Sidious, manipulating events from both sides. It was then that Sidious revealed the next phase of his grand plan. He had been secretly funding the creation of a massive battle droid army on the desert world of Geonosis, and now he ordered Gunray to put this mechanical force to the test. The target would be Naboo, Palpatine's own homeworld, in a scheme so audacious that even Gunray didn't fully understand its implications. The Viceroy contacted Queen Padme Amidala of Naboo directly, demanding that she sign a treaty, essentially giving the Trade Federation control of her entire planet. When the young queen refused, Gunray implemented the next phase of Sidious's plan, a complete blockade of Naboo using a fleet of massive battleships. The Naboo crisis had begun, and with it, the first domino in the fall of the Republic. From his flagship, the droid control ship Sak-Ak, Gunray commanded the blockade that cut off all shipping to Naboo, slowly strangling the peaceful planet. Supreme Chancellor Finis Valorum, seeking a diplomatic solution, dispatched 2 Jedi negotiators, Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi. For Gunray, this would be his first encounter with the legendary guardians of peace and justice, and it would not go well. When the protocol droid TC-14 informed Gunray that the Republic ambassadors were Jedi Knights, the Viceroy and his captain, Dalte Dauphine, panicked completely. Gunray immediately contacted Darth Sidious via hologram, his voice trembling with fear. The Dark Lord's response was decisive and chilling. Kill the Jedi and invade Naboo. When Gunray questioned the legality of such actions, Sidious coldly assured him that he would make it legal once events unfolded. What followed was Gunray's first taste of murder. He ordered the destruction of the Jedi's ship, the Radiant Seven, and then attempted to poison the 2 Jedi with deadly gas. When that failed, he sent battle droids to finish them off, but the Jedi survived and began fighting their way toward the bridge. In desperation, Gunray sealed the blast doors and called for destroyer droids, managing to force the Jedi to retreat just long enough for him to proceed with the invasion. Despite the threat posed by the Jedi, Gunray pressed forward with Sidious's plan. The Trade Federation's droid army landed on Naboo in massive C-9979 landing craft, and within hours they had captured the capital city of Theed and most other major population centers. Queen Amidala and her entourage were taken prisoner, and Gunray personally traveled to the planet to demand she sign his treaty. The image of Gunray sitting smugly on Queen Amidala's throne perfectly captured his arrogance and delusions of grandeur. He held Governor Sio Bibble prisoner and taunted him from atop his mechno chair, reveling in his apparent victory. The Naboo population was forced into internment camps where they faced starvation and hardship, while Gunray consolidated his control over the planet. But Gunray had underestimated both the Jedi and the young queen. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, along with the bumbling Gungan Jar Jar Binks, managed to rescue Queen Amidala and escape off-world. This was Gunray's first major setback, but he believed it was only temporary. After all, what could one young queen do against the might of the Trade Federation? The answer came when Queen Amidala made her way to Coruscant and addressed the Galactic Senate directly. With the help of Senator Palpatine, she exposed the Trade Federation's illegal actions and called for a vote of no confidence against Chancellor Valorum. Gunray watched helplessly as his political allies in the Senate, led by Trade Federation Senator Lot Dodd, tried unsuccessfully to block Republic intervention. Meanwhile, back on Naboo, Queen Amidala was doing something unprecedented. She was forging an alliance between her people and the native Gungans. For generations, these two peoples had lived separately, but now they were uniting against a common enemy. Gunray, confident in his droid army's superiority, dismissed the Gungans as primitives who posed no threat to his mechanical forces. The Queen's three-pronged battle plan was brilliant in its simplicity. The Gungan Grand Army would march on Theed to draw away the bulk of the droid forces, while Naboo forces would infiltrate the city to capture Gunray himself. Simultaneously, Naboo pilots would launch an assault on the droid control ship in orbit, hoping to disable the entire droid army in one decisive strike. As reports reached Gunray that the Gungan army was approaching Theed, he contacted his master, Darth Sidious, for permission to destroy them. At Sidious's urging, Gunray dispatched the majority of his droid forces to wipe out what he assumed would be an easy target. This decision would prove to be catastrophic. With most of his droids occupied fighting the Gungans, Gunray found himself vulnerable when Queen Amidala and her forces infiltrated the royal palace. His remaining security droids captured what they believed to be the queen, but they had fallen for an elaborate deception. The woman they captured was actually Sabe, one of Amidala's handmaidens, serving as a decoy. When the real Queen Amidala appeared in the throne room with reinforcements, Gunray's confusion was complete. His battle droids, unable to distinguish between the real queen and her decoy, were divided and quickly overwhelmed. In a matter of minutes, Gunray found himself staring down the barrel of a blaster, his droidekas destroyed and his forces scattered. But the true death blow came from above. Young Anakin Skywalker, flying a Naboo N-1 starfighter, had managed to penetrate the defenses of the droid control ship and destroy it from within. In an instant, every battle droid on Naboo shut down, leaving Gunray's invasion force completely helpless. The Battle of Naboo was over, and Gunray had suffered a humiliating defeat at the hands of a teenage queen and a 9-year-old boy. Captured and disgraced, Gunray was transported to Coruscant to face justice for his crimes. But this is where the corruption of the Republic's legal system became apparent. Despite overwhelming evidence of his guilt, Gunray's army of lawyers worked tirelessly to ensure that no meaningful charges were ever brought against him. For 4 long years, he underwent trial after trial in the Supreme Court, each one ending in his favor. The trials were a mockery of justice. Gunray's 3rd trial ended in a hung jury, while his 4th found him completely not guilty, allowing him to retain all his assets and titles. The legal fees cost him a fortune, but it was a price he was willing to pay for his freedom. Throughout this ordeal, his hatred for Queen Amidala, now Senator Amidala, only grew stronger. Gunray's vindictiveness knew no bounds. He used the Trade Federation's resources to fund negative media campaigns against Amidala through Tri-Nebulon News, attempting to discredit her as too young and inexperienced for galactic politics. Rumors even circulated that he had placed a bounty on her head, though nothing was ever proven. His obsession with revenge would ultimately drive every major decision he made for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, a new political movement was gaining momentum. Count Dooku of Sereno, a former Jedi Master who had become disillusioned with the Republic, was building a coalition of systems and corporations dissatisfied with Republic rule. In 24 years before the Battle of Yavin, Dooku delivered the famous Raxus Address, denouncing the Republic as corrupt and ineffective. For Gunray, this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. His bitterness toward the Republic, combined with his desperate desire for revenge against Amidala, made him a perfect recruit for Dooku's cause. But Gunray had one non-negotiable demand. Senator Amidala must die. Dooku, who was secretly the Sith Lord Darth Tyrannus and Sidious's new apprentice, readily agreed to this condition. The assassination attempts on Amidala were carried out by some of the galaxy's most skilled bounty hunters, Jango Fett and the shapeshifter Zam Wesell, but both attempts failed, and worse, they drew the attention of the Jedi Order to a secret Republic project, the creation of a clone army on the remote world of Kamino. The failed assassination had inadvertently exposed one of the key elements of Sidious's grand plan. Jedi Knight Obi-Wan Kenobi, investigating the assassination attempts, tracked Jango Fett to the desert world of Geonosis, where he made a shocking discovery. The Separatists were building a massive droid army, and the leaders of major corporations were meeting to pledge their support to Count Dooku's cause. Hidden among the rocky spires of Geonosis, Kenobi watched as Gunray, along with Archduke Poggle the Lesser, Foreman Wat Tambor, and others, committed themselves to war against the Republic. During this secret meeting, Gunray's obsession with Amidala was again on full display. When Dooku discussed the terms of their alliance, the Viceroy interrupted to ask about the Naboo senator, declaring that he would not sign any treaty until her head was on his desk. Dooku assured him that he was a man of his word, but privately, the Count must have been disgusted by the Neimoidians' petty vindictiveness. The corporate leaders' pledges of support gave the Separatists an overwhelming military advantage. The Trade Federation alone contributed thousands of battle droids, massive warships, and vast financial resources to what would become known as the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Combined with the banking clan's economic power, the Commerce Guild's industrial might, and the Techno-Union's technological expertise, the Confederacy possessed a military force that could challenge the Republic on equal terms. But before the Separatists could launch their revolution, disaster struck. Kenobi, along with Senator Amidala and Padawan Anakin Skywalker, were captured after a skirmish in the Geonosian droid factory. As punishment for their espionage, they were sentenced to death in the Petranaki arena, forced to fight against massive creatures, a Reek, an Akle, and a Nexu. Gunray attended the execution with obvious pleasure, sitting alongside Dooku, Poggle, Jango Fett, and the other Separatist leaders. When one of the arena beasts, the Nexu, savagely attacked Amidala, the Viceroy chuckled in glee, finally believing he would witness the death of his most hated enemy. But his joy was short-lived, as Amidala and her Jedi companions managed to evade the creatures and began fighting back. In desperation, Gunray ordered Jango Fett to kill Amidala immediately, but Dooku counseled patience, assuring him that she would die regardless. This proved to be another massive miscalculation, as a Jedi strike force led by Master Mace Windu suddenly attacked the arena. In the chaos that followed, Gunray and the other Separatist leaders ducked for cover as lightsabers and blaster fire filled the air around them. The situation deteriorated further when Grandmaster Yoda arrived with a massive clone army, the same force that Kenobi's investigation had inadvertently revealed. Gunray retreated with Dooku and the others to the Geonosian war room, where he watched in growing alarm as the Republic's clone troopers proved superior to his cherished battle droids. When Dooku suggested they send all available droids into battle, Gunray agreed, but it wasn't enough. The Republic forces were winning. As the battle turned decisively against the Confederacy, Gunray made a comment that would prove prophetic. "This is not looking good at all." Acting on Runhako's suggestion, he ordered the Trade Federation's core ships to escape into space, abandoning Geonosis to supervise the evacuation. The First Battle of Geonosis was over, and with it, the Clone Wars had officially begun. By joining the Separatists, Gunray had placed himself beyond the reach of Republic law, finally escaping the justice that had eluded him for so long. Officially, the Trade Federation remained neutral in the conflict, doing business with both sides, while Gunray led what was described as a splinter faction, fully devoted to the Confederacy. It was a convenient fiction that allowed the Federation to maximize its profits while supporting the war effort. During the opening days of the war, Gunray continued his business activities, traveling to worlds like Rodia to negotiate trade deals. But wherever he went, trouble seemed to follow. When Senator Amidala and Anakin Skywalker arrived on Rodia to rescue members of the Naboo Tirada Collective, Gunray's presence forced them to abandon their mission early, taking only one refugee with them as droid starfighters closed in. The war also brought internal challenges to the Trade Federation. Rumors reached Gunray of a splinter group within the Federation seeking to overthrow his leadership, led by a Neimoidian named OJ and Deeb. This faction hoped to redeem the Federation's image by supporting the Republic and taking Lot Dodd's Senate seat. Though Gunray wanted to eliminate this threat immediately, Darth Sidious ordered him to hold back, using the splinter group for his own mysterious purposes. Several months into the war, Gunray saw an opportunity to achieve his long-delayed revenge against Amidala while simultaneously expanding separatist influence. The outer rim world of Rodia had been devastated by pirate attacks, and its senator, Anaconda Farr, had appealed to the Republic for aid. When no help came, Gunray stepped in with an offer: relief supplies for Rodia in exchange for one small favor. That favor was the capture of Senator Amidala. Farr, desperate to save his people, reluctantly agreed to lure his old friend to Rodia under the pretense of seeking Republic assistance. When Amidala arrived with Representative Jar Jar Binks and her protocol droid C-3PO, she walked directly into Gunray's trap. Finally, after years of failed assassination attempts, the Viceroy had his greatest enemy within his grasp. Gunray savored his moment of triumph, ordering Amidala to be manacled as a precaution before he traveled to Rodia to confront her personally. But once again, he had underestimated his opponents. Jar Jar Binks, despite his bumbling nature, managed to evade Gunray's battle droids and convince them that he was a Jedi. In the ensuing chaos, Amidala and C-3PO escaped their bonds and contacted the Republic for assistance. Though they were quickly recaptured, the damage was done. When Gunray arrived on Rodia, he applied pressure to Senator Farr by withholding the promised relief supplies until Amidala was executed. But Farr had been playing a deeper game than anyone realized. He and Amidala had planned the entire scenario as a trap to capture Gunray, using the Viceroy's own vindictiveness against him. As Gunray prepared to execute Amidala with a trio of destroyer droids, Jar Jar Binks burst from the swamp riding a massive Quazel Maw creature he had befriended. The monster overwhelmed the droids and knocked Gunray's transport shuttle into the swamp when he tried to flee. Held at gunpoint by Amidala, the Viceroy found himself prisoner once again when Republic forces of the 41st Elite Corps arrived to take him into custody. The capture of such a high-ranking separatist leader was a major victory for the Republic, and Gunray was transferred aboard the Venator-class Star Destroyer Tranquility for transport to Coruscant. Due to his importance to the Confederacy, the Jedi Council assigned Master Luminara Unduli and Padawan Ahsoka Tano to guard him, reinforced by Senate guards led by Captain Pharaoh Argius and clone troopers under Commander Gree. During his captivity, Gunray was interrogated by his Jedi guards, but refused to cooperate, maintaining his innocence despite overwhelming evidence of his crimes. He even attempted to bribe Commander Gree, claiming to be a man of great wealth who could be very generous to his allies. Gree's response was to present him with a fresh pair of handcuffs, making it clear that Republic forces could not be bought. But Gunray's allies had not abandoned him. Darth Sidious and Count Dooku dispatched the Dathomirian assassin Asajj Ventress to either rescue or eliminate the Viceroy before he could reveal Separatist secrets. Ventress infiltrated the Tranquility during a diversionary attack by Separatist forces, using the chaos to sabotage the ship's power systems and free Gunray from his cell. The rescue operation revealed the depth of corruption within the Republic's ranks. Captain Argus, one of the Senate guards, supposedly protecting Gunray, was actually a traitor working for Count Dooku. When the opportunity arose, Argus helped Gunray escape, overpowering his fellow guards and stealing a Republic cruiser from the ship's hangar bay. The escape was successful, but it came at a cost. Ventress, true to her ruthless nature, killed Argus as soon as they were safe, stabbing him through the chest with her lightsaber. Gunray, demonstrating his cowardly and opportunistic nature, told Ventress he had always had a good feeling about her. The exact same words he had used to praise Argus before his betrayal was revealed. Following his escape, Gunray assisted Count Dooku in orchestrating increasingly complex schemes against the Republic. He provided a holographic projection to taunt Jedi Master Kit Fisto and his former apprentice Nadar Veb as they were lured into a trap at General Grievous's fortress on Vasek. Gunray took great pleasure in deceiving the Jedi, laughing maniacally as he welcomed them to their doom. The trap succeeded in killing Veb and several clone troopers, though Fisto managed to escape. As the war progressed, Gunray found himself working with some of the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. Under Darth Sidious's orders, he provided ships from the Trade Federation fleet to assist the notorious bounty hunter Cad Bane in his theft of a Jedi holocron from the planet Deveron. Despite Bane's success in obtaining the holocron and its memory crystal, Gunray was furious when the mission cost him 4 ships to Republic forces. The Viceroy's complaints about his losses revealed his fundamental selfishness and short-sightedness. When he demanded compensation for his destroyed vessels, Bane assured him that Darth Sidious would pay for the losses once the stolen information was delivered. But Gunray's focus on immediate profits blinded him to the larger strategic value of the operation and his subordinate position in Sidious's grand scheme. By 19 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Clone Wars had reached a critical juncture. The death of Count Dooku during the Battle of Coruscant left the Separatist movement without its charismatic leader, while the subsequent defeat of General Grievous on Utapau effectively ended organized Confederate resistance. With their military leadership destroyed, the surviving members of the Separatist Council faced an uncertain future. Gunray, along with the other Separatist leaders, met with General Grievous on Utapau for what would prove to be their final strategy session. The cyborg general informed them that they were being transferred to the volcanic planet of Mustafar for their safety, though this order actually came from Darth Sidious himself. Gunray, his confidence shattered by recent defeats, questioned Grievous's ability to protect them, citing the general's failure to capture Chancellor Palpatine and prevent Dooku's death. Grievous, never one to tolerate criticism, responded with barely contained violence, warning Gunray that he should be thankful not to find himself in the general's grip. The exchange highlighted the deteriorating relationships within the Separatist leadership and their growing desperation as Republic forces closed in on their remaining strongholds. The Separatist leaders followed Grievous's instructions and departed for Mustafar just moments before Obi-Wan Kenobi arrived with Republic forces. During the subsequent battle, Kenobi finally killed Grievous, dealing what appeared to be the final blow to the Confederate war effort. With their last military leader dead, the surviving Separatist Council members found themselves isolated on Mustafar with nowhere left to run. On Mustafar, Gunray watched helplessly as his personal fortune evaporated and his corporate empire crumbled. The Republic had nationalized the intergalactic banking clan, seized his assets on Cato Neimoidia, and effectively destroyed the Trade Federation's power base. All he had left were the other desperate members of the Separatist Council, and even they were demoralized by their string of defeats. With Dooku and Grievous dead, Gunray believed that he might finally gain more power within the Confederacy and perhaps salvage some benefit from the war, but his hopes were built on a fundamental misunderstanding of his true position in Darth Sidious's plans. The Viceroy had never been an ally or partner. He had always been a tool, useful only as long as he served his master's purposes. The end came suddenly and without warning. After successfully turning Anakin Skywalker to the dark side and initiating the Great Jedi Purge, Darth Sidious decided that the Separatist Council had outlived its usefulness. He dispatched his new apprentice, now called Darth Vader, to Mustafar, with orders to eliminate all the surviving Separatist leaders. Sidious, demonstrating his mastery of deception even in the final moments, informed the Separatist Council that Vader was coming to make peace with them. When the former Jedi Knight arrived on Mustafar, Gunray greeted him with relief, believing that their long struggle was finally over and that Lord Sidious was offering them the peace they desperately sought. Instead, Vader sealed the blast doors and ignited his lightsaber. What followed was a systematic execution of everyone who had helped build the Confederacy of Independent Systems. One by one, the corporate leaders who had pledged their resources to the Separatist cause were cut down by the very Jedi they had fought to destroy. Gunray was saved for last, perhaps as a final cruel joke from his Sith master. As Vader cornered him, the Viceroy made one final desperate attempt to save his life. "The war is over," he pleaded. "Lord Sidious promised us peace. We only want—" But his words were cut short by Vader's blue blade slashing across his chest. In his final moments, Nute Gunray remained true to his cowardly nature, begging for his life rather than facing death with dignity. He died as he had lived, thinking only of himself, blind to the consequences of his actions, and unable to comprehend that his alliance with evil had always been destined to destroy him. With Gunray's death, the Clone Wars officially ended. Vader transmitted the shutdown signal to all remaining Separatist droids, while his master proclaimed the birth of the Galactic Empire. The Trade Federation was dissolved, its assets absorbed by the new Imperial government, and official records falsely claimed that Gunray had taken his own life upon realizing the hopelessness of the Separatist cause. But the truth was far different from the Imperial propaganda. Gunray's body was left abandoned in the ruins of the Separatist stronghold on Mustafar, a fitting end for a man who had prioritized profit over principle and personal revenge over galactic peace. Years later, when Darth Vader returned to Mustafar as part of his own punishment, he would find Gunray's decomposing remains still lying where they had fallen, a grim reminder of the price of serving the Sith. The legacy of Nute Gunray serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked greed and the corrupting influence of power. A man who could have used his position to improve conditions across the galaxy instead chose to prioritize personal profit and petty vengeance. His obsession with destroying Padme Amidala ultimately led him to ally with forces far more dangerous than anything he could comprehend. Gunray's story also illustrates how the Sith manipulated the political and economic systems of the Republic to achieve their goals. By exploiting the Viceroy's weaknesses, his cowardice, his greed, and his vindictiveness, Darth Sidious was able to transform a minor trade dispute into a galaxy-spanning war that destroyed the very government it was supposedly fought to preserve. Perhaps most tragically, Gunray's actions contributed to the suffering of countless innocent beings across the galaxy. His blockade of Naboo caused starvation and hardship for millions. His support for the Separatist cause prolonged a war that claimed billions of lives. And his personal vendetta against one senator helped create the very conditions that allowed the Sith to seize control of the galaxy. In the end, Nute Gunray was neither a mastermind nor a true believer. He was simply a small, petty man whose character flaws were weaponized by forces beyond his understanding. His death on Mustafar marked not just the end of his personal story, but the final collapse of the corporate-controlled political system that had enabled his rise to power. The Trade Federation Viceroy died believing he was on the verge of victory, never realizing that he had been nothing more than a pawn in a game far larger than his limited imagination could grasp. In pursuing his narrow personal interests, he had helped destroy the very republic that had given him the freedom to accumulate his wealth and power in the first place. Nute Gunray's legacy is one of greed triumphant over wisdom, cowardice masquerading as pragmatism, and the ultimate futility of serving evil masters who view their allies as nothing more than expendable tools. His story reminds us that in the grand theater of galactic politics, even the most powerful corporate leaders can find themselves reduced to bit players in someone else's drama, dancing to music they don't understand until the final, fatal note is played.